Okay, so this is just a short tutorial video for the Excel exercise for the homework. The idea about this exercise is just to show you a few things in Excel, how to download data from the web, how to manipulate formulas, and we're going to do it in the context of the McDonald's analogy method of market size calculation that we did in the class. So the idea here is, imagine we have a store with 4,000 stores in the US, and we're thinking about other markets. We have a country with a quarter of the population of the US and a quarter of the wealth of the relative GDP per capita. So our 4,000 stores, we divide it by the ratio of population, which is a quarter, which is 4. So it's 4,000 divided by 4, which gives us 1,000 stores. We do the same for GDP per capita, divide by 4, we get 250 stores. So it's kind of a quick and easy method of estimating the potential market for a concept in a different country. Obviously, it's not perfect. You're going to have to do some initial analysis, but it's kind of a good thing as a first analysis. So first, we have to get the information. So we actually have the GDP per capita, and we actually have the population. So let's get the GDP per capita. And you see here, this is actually just it's on Wikipedia. And you see we have 3 different versions of this. We're just going to use the first one, the IMF one. So let's go back to our book, click data, click from web, enter the URL, just stick with basic, we just want the default. And here we go, we actually get to the left. These are basically web pages are encoded in a language called HTML. This just kind of, the idea is it gets the individual HTML elements so we can do things like extract tables out of web pages. So we just kind of cycle through, and the information we want is in table 1. So we just click table 1 to the left and then click load. Again, we're not doing anything fancy. Now, what we want to do is we want to add another sheet. And in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to get the population data. So now we've got the population by country, so we're going to do exactly the same. And again, that URL is listed in the instructions. So just go to data, from web, enter the URL, OK. Okay, and this time it's a lot easier. There's just literally one table in this document. So we load this table. So what we want to do now, let it get to work. I think I've got kind of the slow cell phone internet connection here. There it goes. I guess it just had a lot more data than the previous one. Combined with my slow internet connection. Okay, so now what we're going to do is look at my instructions. So we're going to put columns B and C of the GDP data into column A of a new kind of spreadsheet, worksheet, and we're going to put columns B and C into column N. Okay, so let's just see what we got here. We've got the 2 pieces of information. We don't need 2, so we've got 1 extra sheet. So columns B and C we're going to put into column A. And what we do is we're basically just going to select it. So just kind of select my columns. Then copy, Control C. Now paste, we're going to do it a little bit differently. Because there's a lot of formatting and links to the web data, we're just going to paste, and we're going to paste the values. So remember, paste values in the first one there. And all that does is it just removes any kind of weird formatting. And so this has the countries and the GDP per capita. Now we're going to create a new column for the population, and we're going to calculate a new column for our estimated stores, but we have to wait for that. So now we're going to do exactly the same with the information on the population. Now again, we're going to select columns B and C, Control C, or just copy on Excel if you've got it up there. And we're going to put this into column N. We're just going to, just to keep it out of the way, and again, paste values. So we have, you see, China has the highest population, followed by India, then the United States. Okay, now we're just actually, so with they're similar, we'll just sort them. So we've got everything to make things easier to find. You know, so we know where countries are. We're going to sort in alphabetical order. So here, select columns A and B, and we're going to go to data and sort, and make sure my data has headers is selected, and then sort by country territory, which is column A. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing with this. So in N and O, data, sort, and then sort by, again, sort by country, and we have all the countries sorted. Now what we could do is we could kind of copy across each of these in turn, and it might take us a few minutes, but you see there's some extra countries in here, which means we can't just like copy and paste the entire column, which makes everything a little bit fiddly. So there is actually a better way of doing this, and I will show you how to do it. So what we do is we got a column called VLOOKUP. So in the population column, we're going to use VLOOKUP. Now what this does is, let's just look at this individually. So what it's going to do is it's going to try and find Afghanistan. It's looking up A2. In this area, N220236, which is basically all the items which we've pasted in for population. And it's going to look up in the first column Afghanistan. It's going to return the information in this col index number, which is the second column. Notice also we have these little dollar signs in front of the 2 and the 236. What does this mean? Well, we're going to get this formula and we're going to drag it down for all the other countries. Now, if we don't put the dollar in, then these numbers will actually increase. So N2 will become N3, N4, N5, and we don't want that to change. We want to still have the entire table. So when you have a dollar sign in front of a number, it means the number doesn't move when you kind of move your formula into different cells. So here we go. It gets for Afghanistan. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select, and you can do this several ways. You can kind of just do shift like that down to the bottom, or you could just drag all the way down. I'm sure you covered selecting and stuff in your intro Excel course. So just go all the way down to Zimbabwe. Now we're going to use, and it's exactly the same I think on the Mac, you use the kind of the Mac equivalent key. It's Control D. And that will actually paste in all of these values. And you see, I'm actually quite lucky because these two sources seem to have exactly the same country names. They actually match perfectly, which is, it's actually pretty amazing that this worked. Okay, so now we want to calculate the number of stores. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to do Starbucks, and I found some research, and Starbucks has 28,218 stores. And we're going to put this into G1. So 28,218. And let's just say these are the Starbucks stores. So US Starbucks. So as I said, for each of these countries, we want to take this number of stores and multiply it by the ratio of the GDP between this country and the US and the population between this country and the US. So we'd obviously start off with G1, which is our number of stores. But we want to multiply it by first the GDP, so the GDP for Afghanistan, all over the GDP for the US. So where's the US? The US is on line 185. So we do it in 185. And we're going to have to use the dollar sign again, because when we drag this formula, we want it to still keep 185. And then we do exactly the same with the population. So it'll be C2 divided by C, 185. And again, we can do what we did before. We can drag down Control D. Something weird happened. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. This, I was telling you all about the dollar, and I completely forgot I need the dollar for the G, because otherwise it was actually what it was doing is it was searching down the G column. So my mistake is nicely instructive. So we can now do the Control D, and we get the number of stores. Okay, that's the problem with live demonstrations. Anyway, so we have the number of stores, and you can see here how the formula works. The G1 and the B and C 185 stay the same, but now we're getting the values for each of these individual countries in each of the rows. Okay, and the remainder of the exercise, I want you to pick your own retailer, find the number of stores, pick a country, and then do a little bit of research on that country of whether your store would be a good match for that country.